This is Mrs. Kieselbach. We'll be doing an English Language Arts unit. We're going to be reading The Yellow Wallpaper and having a Socratic seminar discussion. We are going to present to you a 5-day lesson in a smaller capacity. This will show you the objectives and the student engagement, and I hope that you enjoy the lesson. I'm going to bring the students in now. These are seniors who have graduated, so they've come back to do this lesson for you and for me. Please pick out each of the papers on your way in. We're not in the Socratic discussion yet, so you guys can just sit together. Slight disadvantages. Okay. So, the first thing we're going to do, you guys have picked up the Socratic seminar discussion packet. We're going to start that, what would be tomorrow. Today I want to do a little bit of background information on the story. If you would pull the story to the front. Those of you that have the image there, based on the image, what do you think this story will be about? Some of you have an image, some of you do not. Can I borrow this? This is what the image looks like on the story. For those of you that didn't print this out.
I already got it.
All right. So, what would you guess that this story was going to be about?
Lady spending her time.
A girl, a writer.
Window. Knitting, somebody in knitting. Maybe she's a world-class knitter.
She could be knitting.
Oh, because she's knitting? Okay, maybe. All right, so obviously the story takes place a long time ago, way before any of us existed, back in the 1800s. So to kind of get you back into that era, we're going to do one of our agreement lines. So I'm going to have you guys all line up here, down the center. I'm going to put some anticipation guide questions, and rather than mark them off, agree or disagree, we're going to step to the left and step to the right.
I don't want to do this.
Okay, so as I pull up the questions, you guys, if you agree, you'll step to your right, and if you disagree, you'll step to your left. And if you really have no idea or no concept, then you can just stay on the center line and you can explain why you feel that way. Ideally, we close our eyes so everybody can kind of answer anonymously, but you determine if you want other people to know your answer. Okay. So this should give you some aspect of what the story will be about. Women sometimes experience severe depression after having a baby. If you agree with that statement, you think that women do suffer from some depression, step to the right. And if you disagree, step to the left. And you really don't know, you can just stay in the middle. Go ahead and step. You don't know? Okay. So you guys both disagree that that doesn't happen? You don't think so? And you guys think that it does happen? Yeah. Okay, and you guys aren't sure in the middle. All right. It's a real condition, I guess you would call it. It's postpartum depression. Women sometimes do experience that. It's not every woman, obviously. It should be, right? But there's a lot of body changes going on, and they just don't sleep through the night, and they're crying, and so sometimes that does happen. Yeah. Changing your mind now. All right, go ahead, back to the center. Move on to question 2. Someone who is suffering a mental breakdown is still a reliable source. If you agree, if you think somebody who is mentally struggling can still be a reliable source, step to your right. If you disagree and they're not reliable, step to the left. And if you're just not sure, stay in the middle.
I'm really indecisive.
You want to sit down?
You're really indecisive?
Oh, hey.
Okay. Indecisive because you don't have experience with it, or because you think they could be a reliable source, or they...
I don't know. It's kind of like, it depends on what the situation, well, not situation, but like the topic. But then if I think about like reliable, like, I think of like, what's the word? Reliable as like, counter, validity kind of.
Okay.
So I guess you can't really think of reliable because they're numbers down.
So you just convinced yourself. Okay. Okay, possible. All right, go ahead and I'll step back to the middle of me. Yellow wallpaper, as in the title of our story, would be pretty color in a baby's room. Who thinks yellow wallpaper would be pretty in a baby's room?
I like yellow. I'm in the middle.
Yeah, I'm neutral. It's gotta be a pretty nice yellow.
It can't be like a pinky yellow. It can't be like a sunny yellow. It's gotta be like a
It's gotta be very mild and very happy.
I find it so amusing that it's our two guys that are very particular about the shade of yellow.
I want my colors to be on point.
It can't be a bad yellow.
So all the boys are indecisive. Leah, I guess you don't like yellow.
Men are right.
And you guys are all okay with yellow? What does yellow kind of represent, if you think, in terms of like baby rooms? What would you say?
Happy.
Happiness.
Neutral, happiness.
Yellow.
Right.
It's a
All right, because generally speaking, girls are what color?
Yellow.
White.
Girls? Pink. Yes, thank you, Sophia.
Yellow's a neutral color. That can go either way.
Generally speaking, boys are.
Blue.
All right, and then so yellow is usually that neutral color where it could go with either or, yellow or green. So, right. Well, no, I'm sure they know what it is. It's a neutral decorative color. All right, back to the center line. All right, next question. In the 1800s, women were dependent on their husbands for everything. So you would have to sort of understand what was happening in the 1800s, what men and women's roles were. So if you know that, you might be able to make this decision. And if you just know from hearing it over history and through English classes, maybe you can assess this. Women were dependent on their husbands for everything.
They still are.
So we have two that are, Thomas, you're pretty indecisive.
I'm like in the middle.
Okay, you're in the middle on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, Dylan, what sort of things were they dependent on their husbands for?
The 1800s weren't like the men the breadwinners of the family. Like they got the money and the women take.
Women didn't work at all. Their work was child rearing at the time, but there was no like workforce to speak of. There were some women that did hold jobs. Can you guess what those jobs were?
Clean.
Outside of the house.
Oh. Farming.
Girls did not, women did not farm.
Nope.
There were no grocery stores.
Laundry.
Laundry was inside the home or outside the door, but I mean outside. What do I do?
Teach.
It was usually the only job women had early on. They would be the teachers in the schoolhouse. And the schoolhouse would be, 6 years old through 16 years old. They all went to the same school. Because they needed the men for physical labor. But generally speaking, they were dependent on their husbands for the physical stuff, doing the farming, bringing home the food. Okay, back to the center, we have 3 more. A rest cure is a good medical treatment. So for those of you that read the story, you might have known that the woman was put on a rest cure. I will tell you what a rest cure is. A rest cure is when you do nothing but rest. You don't walk, you don't read, you don't write, you don't feed yourself, you get massages, you just lay around and rest. That was a medical treatment in that time.
What you got right now?
So you guys all think the rest cure is a grand idea.
I think I need it. After taking care of him for the past couple of days, I need it.
So you do not think it's a good treatment, and you guys are kind of in the middle?
Yeah.
Tell me why, Zakia.
Because, like the story, it was her rest cure was making her worse. But like for someone who's hurt or injured or something, yeah, the rest cure would probably be the best thing for them.
Okay,
But you said they can't read or anything?
nothing.
Yeah, when you're resting, like you can, like if you're on bed rest, you can still do all that stuff and you'll feel better.
Imagine
They don't
today.
completely cut you off.
Okay, Seth has a broken arm. So Seth needs to go home to his bed. There was no television, there was no iPad, there was no computer, there was no phone, there was no music, there was no Facebook, there is no nothing.
I still agree.
Give you a massage.
That's a rest cure.
All he does is sleep.
And he has people that need to feed him.
Put his hand on.
Okay.
Great, love the hand, fan on the right.
All right, so that's changing some people's minds. When they say rest cure, they mean 100% rest. I still have Macy and Dylan in the middle. What's beneficial about it, and what would be kind of a hindrance to somebody?
Just depends on the situation. Some people might like to get massages and do nothing with their life, but
it is. There's an entire industry out of physical therapy. So even when you're in the hospital for an ailment, you're still getting some sort of exercise or mobility. You still have a TV in your hospital room, so that's not a complete rest cure, according to this doctor's notion, and we'll get into that a little bit in a few minutes. All right, 2 more, back to the middle. Men are best to determine a woman's ailments and the necessary treatment. So if you agree that way, if you disagree this
Men
way.
know all
You lost me at ailments.
Sickness.
sicknesses,
Whatever's ailing you, whatever's making
like
you
your
sick.
broken arm is an ailment.
Mhm. The stomach flu. You think men determine that? Okay, so Dylan is our sensible man who steps over here and says it's not just up to the man to determine. Gabby, you're in the middle. Why?
Kind of depends on what it is. Could be like you might already experience sickness.
Okay.
I could have told him that.
So if it's a man who is educated, informed, perhaps a doctor, well then it's not the gender that's informed, but his role that helps determine that.
Yeah.
And you guys, once again, think that men are superior, clearly.
They are.
And you guys over here do not think that men are the best sources to determine that. Why not? Somebody give me a reason. Aaliyah, we haven't heard from you much. Go ahead. Why do you say, no, they are not best suited to determine a woman's ailments?
As what she said, you don't know if they've experienced it before, so it's not really up to them. If the person's sick, you know. I mean, unless he's experienced it, yes, but he doesn't know exactly what he's doing.
And sometimes women can experience far different ailments than men can ever experience. And so how can they best determine the treatment? I think Gabby's on point where it's an educated person, man or woman is irrelevant. So I would
I mean,
probably.
they don't have to be fully educated. Like, they can have any experience at all and they can still know.
Okay.
So,
All right, let's go back to the center. We have one more question that I think we might have some dissension on. Let's see. Intelligent women pose a threat to the male society. Who agrees with that? They pose a threat. Intelligent women pose a threat to the male society.
Not good.
I don't think he poses.
Okay, we'll be that only guy.
Who disagrees? Seth is completely undecided. All right, so we have our middle row where we're indifferent or undecided. Over here, you agree. Zakiya, tell me why.
Because if you look back on history, like anyone who was seen as educated or intelligent, they didn't want the people who were less educated to know what they know based on the fear that, excuse me, if you find out what the other person knows, that you can surpass them.
Okay.
So it's like,
And especially in this time, men did not want to be surpassed by women during the 1800s. Let me go to somebody over here. Dylan, why do you disagree? So you're saying they do not pose a threat. Tell me why they do not pose a threat.
Because I mean, if they're smarter than a dude and they're gonna make my job easier, then I'm all for it.
If they're smarter than
Share the work,
that was
right?
really good.
Okay. So how about the center line? Macy, you're undecided. Are you undecided or you're indifferent? You don't think one way or another they pose a threat, or you're just not sure?
I'm not sure. I mean, like, compared to like the older days, yeah, because men were superior and now that women are kind of taking over, then I guess it could be right back then, but.
And not so much now. So Seth, you think women taking over is a stretch?
Yeah.
I think-
that's what
They're not
it
taking over,
Better.
but they're getting more educated.
was. Becoming more
They're becoming more equal.
They are equal.
I say they're not equal, right?
Yeah, they're equal there.
As much as I tend to want to say women are completely equal, I don't think we are in this day and age. I think there's still
That's
room
the
to
thing.
grow.
That-
When you look at the
yeah.
number of CEOs that run a company, men surpass the number of women CEOs.
I think when you think of power,
Without a
it's
doubt.
always men, you know, it's not women. But I
It's
mean, I
even
feel like
though
women are getting to
I
that
think that's
point.
changing,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
where-
think still, even in 2013, I think that there are still more men in more powerful positions. Not that women don't have the capacity, but sometimes
Look at the president.
it's difficult to get
There
there.
hasn't been one female president.
Hillary came close, and she might come close again.
Hopefully. I wouldn't mind.
I'll move to
2016.
Canada if Hillary Clinton becomes president. The
Okay.
day one becomes president, they out of the country because someone's gonna throw the news list and be like, no, let's just give him a hug.
Yes, because that's Hillary's style. Okay, way off topic. All right, let's go back to the story. Go ahead, you guys can all take your seats.
I'll have to say, okay, well, that's about it.
Pretty sure it's gonna come out.
Yes. Okay, that's okay. Your name wasn't on it. You can sit anywhere you like. Okay, so let's do a little bit of background notes. I want to talk about who Charlotte Perkins Gilman is. Some of you have Charlotte Perkins Stetson on your story. How many of you have that name on your story? Okay, that was her name at the time. She had several different husbands, and the story was actually written shortly after she and her husband separated. So at the time, her name was Stetson, and then it was changed back over to Gilman. So that's why there was a little bit of a discrepancy, but it's referencing the same person. All right, this story is set in the late 19th century, so it was around the 1890s, somewhere in there. It fictionalizes the struggle of a young married woman enduring Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell's rest cure. He was a real doctor. Like all good literature, it was based on her personal experience. She went to this doctor for treatment because she was considered to be suffering from the nervous condition and needed to be treated with the rest cure. So this fictional character is actually representative of Charlotte herself. In the late 1880s, before writing the story, she, the author, Gilman, contacted Mitchell, and that's when he treated her nervous condition. So let's talk a little bit about the doctor and what the nervous condition and rest cure are. Dr. Mitchell was her doctor. He was a nerve specialist. He built a medical career working with soldiers that were injured during the Civil War. After that, he focused on the treatment of women. Nervous exhaustion is what he called their condition. Normally after they had given childbirth and they were sort of worn out. I know from experience that it's exhausting with a newborn baby, and anybody that has younger brothers or sisters might know the experience of what it's like to have a young baby in the house. They're very needy. They cry a lot, they need to eat, they wake up in the middle of the night. Women would get exhausted. They had male counterparts, but they were very rarely a part of that process. So they would get exhausted, and he would condition them as nervous condition. He would diagnose them. All right, so this rest cure said that a woman could not read, could not write, could not do anything, could barely even think for herself. She had to be fed, taken care of, massaged, treated, pampered, which sounds great for a day, go to the spa and get pampered, but to do this for a long period of time, it sometimes drove women crazy. So, I'm curious how many of you think exhaustion can literally be diagnosed as a disease. The disease per Mitchell reflected the ideas about female weakness. This is when you ladies should get enraged a little bit. It was used to justify women's exclusion from schooling, intellectual pursuits, and public life. And we do have a primary source document that we'll get to in a few days that he wrote, one of his classic texts. He explained how young women could be permanently damaged by overeducation. If you make their brains work too hard, they could suffer permanent damage. So they needed to rest permanently. He advocated a cure of that complete rest and isolation. Quite frankly, I think that would make me more irritated than actually being asked to do stuff, personally. So who thinks exhaustion is a disease?
I mean, I thought a disease was more like bubonic plague or something.
It's a virus.
I thought it was like something that could like kill you, you know?
Cancer is a disease.
Yeah, but like a disease
Exhaustion?
like exhaustion.
That's not a disease. That's a-
1800s.
You still live.
Very different time. We didn't have the testing or the understanding of the body and the medical treatments that we do now. So maybe calling it a disease today is a major stretch, but how many of you think it could be considered a serious condition? Exhaustion.
Not even that.
I got a
Second
serious
after
condition
the-
right now.
I went to bed at like
Tired.
a good hour last night.
Clean up.
I lived there actually.
I mean,
Athletes. I have lots of athletes in here.
yeah.
Did you ever see somebody suffer exhaustion? They didn't hydrate enough, they worked too hard. Heat exhaustion, especially here, where it's a gazillion degrees out. Can you say exhaustion could be a condition if they don't properly maintain their bodies prior
Well,
to
it's
an
like
activity?
heat exhaustion is an actual like condition.
If you overeat,
That's an actual. It's not a disease, but it's a. I don't know what it's called.
or it's like a
But like just regular
Stable.
exhaustion, if you're just tired, take a nap. You don't need to be on bed rest with people taking care
I
of
think
you,
you're
not being able to do anything.
Talking about a little bit
Just
more
have a
of
say
a.
that. Okay.
I don't think like heat exhaustion, yeah, that's a problem. It's hot outside, you get flustered, I don't know. But like, when you're just exhausted, that's totally different than any other thing.
Okay. Thomas, what were you gonna say? You think we're talking about something?
I think it's a little more kind of nap will fix. Exhausted, not
But
tired.
obviously you need to sleep more. Most time when it's
Or
exhaustion.
rest.
Even mentally exhausted, you know, like
Well, yeah.
get home from school, my body's not tired, but my brain is, and
Okay,
that's
what do you
why
usually do when that happens? Sleep.
I sleep. But like they're like constant pounding on the brain for days. When you have a child, you'll see.
Just wait Friday.
Oh, I was gonna say, keep it going.
Try to take care of a grown child who's crippled.
Just disclaimer, Thomas is not speaking from experience. He has no child
Are
at
you
home.
kidding me?
Okay, so here was Charlotte's response. She said, I'm not doing this. She went on rest cure for a momentary time period, and as it progressed, she was unwilling to give up her intellectual pursuit. She was a writer, she enjoyed writing, at times she enjoyed reading, and being asked to stop all of that wasn't in her plan. So, when she first published her story in 1892 about a young woman driven mad by this, she took the exaggerated form of what she was beginning to feel in those early days when she was put on isolation or rest, if you will. So this is her quote about Mitchell's advice, Dr. Mitchell. This is what she suggests Dr. Mitchell is saying to the people. Live as domestic a life as possible. Never touch a pen, a brush, or a pencil as long as you live. So those of you in here, I mean, some of you enjoy writing, some enjoy, whether it's painting or even photography, something that you enjoy doing. Never, ever imagine doing that again. Just be woman.
No, that's not okay.
Yeah, not okay. Okay. All right, so this is what our plan is for tomorrow's lesson. Any questions, comments, anything you want to say in response to any of these concepts? Okay. Clearly, we're in agreement that it's sort of absurd. Yes? Okay. All right, so our homework, if you will, for day 2 is to read the story, The Yellow Wallpaper, that you picked up on your way in. There are some reading questions that accompany it. And so I want you to annotate the text like you do. I want you to highlight parts that you find intriguing. Wherever the yellow wallpaper is mentioned, I would like for you to highlight that. Some of you, depending on the copy that you printed, you might have a yellow background, so I suggest you use a color that's not yellow. I don't know how well it'll show up. But if you printed the white copy, then you're fine. Annotate it, anything you find interesting, any mention of the yellow wallpaper, and in the margins for the notes, I want you to use those reading questions as your guide. Tomorrow when you guys come in, we'll do the Socratic seminar style. We'll be inside, outside, and we'll have a leader to kind of guide us through those questions. And so I want to hear everybody participating. So in advance, read and answer those questions so that you can be a part of them. All right, any questions for that? Okay, do I have a volunteer for somebody who would like to be the leader? All right, so Kia would like to be the leader. We'll need 2 because we'll need 1 for the following day as well. So can I get a second volunteer?
What's the leader doing?
You'll sit up here with me. I won't be participating necessarily in the discussion, but I'll be grading your participation in the discussion. The leader will be the one to kind of walk you through to answer the questions. You guys will have your name cards. You'll hold them up and let the leader know that you want to contribute. So the leader is just the one that kind of leads the discussion. You were beginning to raise your hand.
No.
Okay.
Speaking of Bill, days on.
Let's argue.
You went first. All right, so that's your homework for tonight, and we'll meet back here tomorrow and join in our Socratic discussion. All right, have a good day. Woo!
I want to skip.
If you're down.
All right, welcome to day 2 of the yellow wallpaper. Today we're going to start our bell ringer with a YouTube trailer of this story. It was actually turned into a movie at one point in time. So I'll go over here and get that started. Oh, you guys might not have sound connected in here. See if you can hear it on my... You guys hear that a little bit at least?
That's not.
Yeah, they're like
Horror. I think it's supposed to be a horror movie.
Okay, so your reactions, it looks like a horror movie.
Yeah.
What this is actually considered Gothic writing, that like creeping insanity. If you guys ever read like Edgar Allan Poe, any of his stories, it's like the central character starts off as seemingly normal, and then some sort of circumstances or event just kind of continually creep in on him until he loses it. And that's sort of like this story as you read. The character starts off fairly competent and capable and a little bit exhausted and tired, but certainly not crazy by any stretch of the imagination. But then she's isolated and secluded, and so all those events kind of lead up to her insanity, if you will. So it looks like a horror movie. Would you guys watch that movie?
Yeah.
Do you think it seems more interesting than the story?
Oh, yeah.
Right, because there's more action. What do you think about the sound of the? It was hard to hear
It's
because the audio is
suspenseful.
not connected. Suspenseful.
violent.
Sounds violent. I mean, that's in terms of movies. I mean, that's sort of the things that this generation finds appealing, and so it makes you want to watch it, doesn't it? Yeah. So, I think I would like to see what the movie is like. I've never seen it. I have a tendency not to watch movies that were bred out of literature, because I'm nosy.
That one's probably rated R, and another baby can't go in there, so.
So, can't go? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's activity. This is a review on the Socratic seminar. Everybody that's on the inside, you guys will be my participants for today. Those of you that are in the back circle, you have your sheets, your Socratic seminars. If you're excused from doing the back row as well as you, so just put either on there. So like in past seminars, you're just going to kind of check off when they do those things, and you're going to give them sort of a score between 1 and 5. Whatever Thomas rates Dylan will not determine Dylan's grade. It's going to determine whether or not Thomas participated in the back row. So his evaluation of Dylan is really going to come into play for his own grade. I'm not going to let other people grade you, but it will tell me whether or not you listened and participated. Okay. Ideally, Zakiya won't call on somebody that doesn't want to participate. You have your name cards. So when she poses a question from the reading sheet that you guys have all had exposure to, when she reads a question, and there are several questions built into one, if you feel compelled to answer, then just raise your card and she'll call on you that way. But she won't do any cold calling unless, of course, nobody's participating or responding, and then she has the liberty to call on whoever she wants. Okay, there is the hot seat here, so Gabby, Macy, Thomas, if you feel like you want to contribute, if you feel powerful about one of the questions being asked, just go in the hot seat with your card and Zakiya will acknowledge you and then you can participate. Remember the concepts of discussion and communication. If somebody's speaking, don't speak over them, wait your turn, hold your card up, she'll acknowledge you. Outside members, make sure you're marking those sheets. They'll come in 2 days after we do the switch. All right, any questions? All right, we're gonna get started. I'm not gonna participate. This is for you guys. I'm gonna sit here and mark whether or not you guys are responding.
Do it.
All right, so class is yours.
So question 1, earlier in the story, the narrator says, John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that in a marriage. What comment does this make about the role of a woman in a marriage? Does anyone have any comments?
It's true that they're not taken very seriously, and that like their roles are very small.
Yeah, no.
So you have a comment?
Well, I mean, she kind of said it, yeah, that women just are, they play like a lesser role back then in the 1800s. They were the caretakers of the house, so they didn't really do much, but that's why men see them as a joke, maybe.
Let me add to that. I'll put some questions out there, but I won't respond. Do you think being laughed at is always a bad thing necessarily?
It could be just like a sense of humor, you know, lighten the mood, or.
So why do you think it would bother somebody over time?
Because like after if say Seth likes to be funny sometimes.
Sometimes.
Okay. Anyway, right now but then when he's serious, if we're still laughing at him and he's really trying to be serious with us and we're not taking him seriously, that can get really frustrating.
Okay.
Okay, inside of that question, it asks, What gender assumption does it establish / reinforce? Dylan?
That males hold like a higher role than females do, that they're like, that they're not as smart, so when they do say that something's wrong, that the validity is not as high.
Okay. Over time, oh yeah, sorry.
Yesterday in the PowerPoint, we were talking about the male society, and I feel like back then men would have a greater role in male society.
Okay. Over time, how could it make the narrator or any person feel? Good.
I think it could get someone very like aggravated and mean and come off like, it might come off like a joke to one person, but the next person can be like, they can be irritable about it and get really pissed and maybe like end up causing like a fight over it or something. Everybody's different, obviously.
Okay. Moving on to question 2. The narrator says, personally, I believe that continual work with excitement and change would do me good. But what is one to do? As well as, I cry at nothing and cry most of the time. I'm determined for the 1,000th time that I will follow the pointless pattern to some sort of conclusion. The effort is getting to be greater than the relief. It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight. What feelings does the narrator describe?
Boredom. Maybe she's just going crazy, sitting in that room in that cure of pain and rest. He's my
I think she's feeling like frustrated, and it seems like she's trying to like form a routine. I know I feel more comfortable when I'm in a routine.
I agree with you, but like it's more of the, I feel like she's like stressed out because she knows she can do stuff now. Like she's over her like exhaustion, but yet nobody's gonna let her do anything. So she's like exhausted, or she's stressed out because she knows she can do it, but nobody's letting her. So it's like kind of like that factor. You want to do it, but you can't.
I want to come back to what Dylan said. I think that's what Dylan said. I didn't even think about it with the, that pattern. It feels like she's trying to get into a bit of a pattern. It's summer, so for most of you, your patterns are
Different.
incredibly different than they were here. And so for those first couple of days, maybe even the first week or two, like how many of you felt out of sorts, like trying to figure out what to do to fill your days? And so she's had a period of time where she's done certain things to fill her days, and now all of that's been taken away. And so she may be seeking to implement some sort of pattern to make her feel connected to something.
And it's kind of hard for her to like get a pattern. Like maybe her pattern consisted of waking up at a certain time and going and do something, but now like you just have to sleep the whole time or like just stay in one spot. Like really can't really make a pattern out of it. You just have to like just sit there. It's like you're doing the same exact thing every day, or like so your schedule is like pretty bad.
Anthony.
Okay, yeah. I definitely think she's going nuts just being in the room. And then back to the first question, the fact that her husband is laughing at her, he finds it amusing, it's probably making it 10 times worse. So she's trying to get in her pattern, thinking about how her husband's amused by the fact that she's going nuts.
So that's probably what she gets.
Yeah, that's why it's getting worse, and her being in there is not helping as they think it should be helping.
Okay, and last question. Where might these feelings lead if they are unchecked? Okay.
I think she's really is gonna lose her mind. And I think, and like adding on a little bit on what Macy said, like with her husband and everything, you kind of, when they're doing that, you kind of lose that support system that everybody needs in like some kind of recovery. So if she's suffering from exhaustion, if she loses that support system, it makes it 10 times worse to get better.
Welcome to day 3 of the yellow wallpaper. Today, like yesterday, we're going to do an image bell ringer. I want to take a look at some drawings by an artist. I found them online. We're going to kind of take a look at them. The link is, for whatever reason, hard to see, but reading through them, you guys are going to let me know your thoughts and reactions. And remember, based on yesterday's bell ringer in the YouTube, you said it was a little bit creepy and kind of gothic. So these images, some of them are a little bit creepy as well. Uh-oh. Technology bummer. I'm going to come out of this and copy and paste that into the.
Control C. Or that one.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Hopefully this will let us go to it and view them. Still not up. That's interesting. They were here yesterday and not here today. Okay.
Google Images. Look the way.
See if we have any luck with this one.
Just click images. Top. No.
I haven't previewed this side, so I'm not really sure it's going to come up. So let's.
This is use of imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go to the images on Google. You see how it says the search and it says image?
Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. All right. What do you think of this? What is this reminiscent of? Think of some of the text that you've read. What does this align with?
When she's being haunted.
When she's being haunted?
That's the yellow wall.
It's this artist's rendition of the yellow wallpaper. Remember, I mean, we know that it's yellow, and so that's pretty standard from story to review to image to video.
It's got some creepy
All
faces.
of those little drawings on the wall from what she was experiencing during the story.
So maybe she was making these drawings on there
No,
almost?
this could be like in her head. That's what
Right.
like, she's
Could be,
seeing.
oh, I see, it could
She's
be in
going
her
crazy.
head.
Or she's using the wall, so that's how she feels right now, or whenever.
She's using the wall to, oh, I like that. Okay, let me see if I can find another one. Let's see, go back. All right, what do you think of this one? Less busy than the last one, obviously, but what are your initial reactions to it?
Mustard.
Mustard,
Not an attractive color.
not an attractive yellow. Well, remember that back to our first day where we did our agreement line, we said that yellow would be a pretty color in a baby's room. Some people said, yeah, and that nice pale, light yellow that sort of brings comfort would be good. Would this yellow be good in a baby's room?
No.
It's probably not. So, what else do you think is going on?
It's a black spot.
A black spot, old, you said old?
I said old.
Old, definitely looks old, for sure.
Can you see like the black on the left side of it, kind of like there's
Well, it's faded and it's really uneven.
yeah.
And for, honestly, a lot of houses in Florida are newer because, I mean, it continually grows. And so the homes that you may live in probably don't have incredibly old rooms. There are very old parts of our state, of course, but generally speaking, this area is not that old. And so I doubt that you guys live in a home from the 1800s where that wallpaper is just faded. It was wallpaper. A lot of walls now are just painted. Wallpaper isn't real popular anymore. But over time, it fades. So I would say that it's definitely uneven. I would say old without a doubt. All right, let's look at one more, and then we could go on to our discussion. This wasn't the ideal bell ringer, but it seems to be working. How about, oh,
Well, we can just
apparently that image is not
just put
allowed.
your picture, put your finger over the picture. And just,
This one?
yeah, just put it over. Okay, not really, just really big.
It's not really big enough to discuss anyway. This is from the an image from the movie. Let's see if this will display. So what do we, more of an image and not so much a drawing or a painting? What do you think of this one?
She's kind of like hiding.
She's lost it.
She's hiding, she's lost it.
Looks like she's talking to the chair.
It looks like she's what?
Talking to the chair.
Talking to the chair.
What she means, friends? What's under her comforter? Just
It's a pillow.
I think her pillow.
Seth is good.
What else might she be doing with the chair?
like she's like hiding behind it.
I think it looks like she's hiding behind it. Why would she be hiding behind the chair?
The yellow wallpaper trying to
From the
attack
yellow
her.
wallpaper, because she feels under attack from it. Good, very
I
good.
see the bar on the window.
Yeah, and then you see the bars on the window.
Creepy like.
All right, good, very good. All right, back to our slideshow. All right, so today, same rules as from yesterday apply today. The outer group, you are now the inside group. We have Seth up here as the leader. Again, all members must contribute. If you feel like you want to say something, hold your card. Seth will acknowledge you. Outside, Dylan, Kylie, Aaliyah, at any time you want to come in the hot seat and contribute, that's fine. You're welcome to. Seth's participation will be limited more to asking questions and not so much the discussion, which is why he was inside yesterday. And Zakiya, you're the inside circle today, so contribute as you wish. Again, outside members, marking your reaction sheet so that you are assessing the contribution of the person in front of you. And that will tell me two things. It'll A, tell me how Thomas is perceived, and B, tell me whether or not Dylan's paying attention. So you guys will do that on the outside circle. These packets will be due tomorrow, so remember to turn to the second page of the packets, the evaluation packet. And on that second page, you evaluate yourself. So make sure tonight, after everybody has contributed and some of the ideas have been shared, finish that second page and bring it with you tomorrow. It is due tomorrow. We do have 2 handouts to pick up at the end of class, but I'll go over those before we exit. So I'm going to turn class over to Seth and he can get started.
All right, guys, we're gonna start with question 3. It was nursery first, then the playroom, and then gymnasium. I should judge, for the windows are barred for little children, and there are rings and things in the walls. What inference can you make about the narrator's status from the described setting and imagery say? Macy.
She's definitely not satisfied with how the room looks. She's
What tells you that?
The fact that she mentions that it's for kids, and obviously she's not a kid. The windows are barred, so it's not very peaceful. And it's probably not helping her treatment.
The girl's got anything to say on that?
It's like a distraction for her
Distraction.
treatment, because in the story, she kept talking about how that room, like the yellow walls, they drove her insane. The bars on the windows drove her crazy, because she felt like she was actually in an asylum. So it probably was like a distraction from her actually resting and trying to be better.
All right. There's no gas.
She feels like she's caged, like jail, basically. She doesn't feel like she's safe. She feels like something's happened to her, so like this treatment is not working.
How does it generalize the gender assumption about women in the late 19th century? Zakiya.
That they spent most of their time in the house and around children.
How would you estimate that assumption? What evidence from either, well, you can use the quoted text, but what evidence is provided for you to assess that?
Well, in the quoted text, it was, she judged the room by stuff that was in the room, like the bars on the windows, they typically wouldn't be for grown adults, because it would stop kids from actually getting out of the room. And then she said it was a playroom or gymnasium based on the holes in the wall. Well, what did she say, the rings and things on the wall, which are probably amusing for little kids, and the color of the wallpaper, the yellow wallpaper.
Macy.
It kind of shows that like back in those days, it's what they did. They cared for children, spent their times inside. So she knew in going in there, like this is a kid's room, just based on her knowledge of what they had to do back then.
We're going on to question 4, guys. Anybody else got anything? All right. Question 4. The narrator describes her feelings about the wallpaper as repellent, almost revolting. A smoldering, unclean yellow. It's a dull yet lurid orange in some places, a sticky sulfur tint in others. And I get positively angry when the impertinence of it in the everlastingness. Oh God.
The pertinence of it and the everlastingness.
There you go. Thank you.
Meaning the wallpaper will not go away. Okay, go.
Up and down and sideways they crawl, and those absurd, unblinking eyes are everywhere. What atmosphere does the wallpaper create? Thomas Dalton Day.
I think it creates a very dull, sad atmosphere.
What makes you think that?
Because it's just, sulfur and tint, that's not a happy thing. You want bright colors, not sulfur smelly. So then, the reflection of being bad. It's an unclean yellow. That said it in the text. Unclean, not nice.
All right. Anybody else got anything to say on that? Are you gonna go to the hospital?
No, no.
No, I
Next
can't.
question.
But anybody else? All right.
I would like to bring your attention to up and down and sideways, they crawl. And those absurd unblinking eyes are everywhere. So what is they that is doing the crawling in that text?
Maybe like shadows are everywhere. She thinks something moving.
Shadows,
Spirits
the
or
walls.
something.
Yeah, well, I don't know necessarily spirits. That could be like shadow of the chair or a bed or like the barbed wires from like outside. Something like yours.
Sure, might be playing tricks with her. Later in the sentence it says, and those absurd unblinking eyes are everywhere. What eyes? Whose eyes? Anybody?
The wall's eyes.
Aaliyah?
As you said, maybe spirits, maybe old or previous owner of the house, maybe like the dad died that doesn't really connect with her. She's like, when she's scared, she's fearful or something. Or she sees or feels something.
Adding on to the eyes, could those be like the people that are sitting there to supposedly help her? Like, because they mentioned on a rescue, so she has someone come to feed her. Well, yeah, like
Yes,
someone
she does have, there's like a servant girl that comes,
Right.
and even in that one picture, like she's brushing her hair in it. So
Right.
there are people from the outside world that come with the sole purpose of caring for her. Great, welcome to day 4 of the yellow wallpaper. Come on in. Pick up a sheet here at the table. Perilous stuff, please. We are not in Socratic seminar today. We're going to be working with shoulder partners. So sit in front of or behind somebody else that you can turn and work with. Okay. All right. So for our bell ringer today, I want you guys to just quickly read independently Perilous Stuff. This is a response that was written by a reader. The yellow wallpaper was originally published in a magazine. It says right here, it was recently published in a well-known magazine. Remember, like books and things weren't put together and sold as frequently. So a lot of times short stories would appear in the Sunday paper or different magazines, and that's how a lot of people got exposure early on. So this person, by the initials MD, read the story, The Yellow Wallpaper, in a well-known magazine. And this was his or her, it's hard to determine, I'm guessing, well, you guys can guess if it's male or female upon reading it. So go ahead and read this quietly, and I want to discuss it with you in just a moment. done reading it on the back, just quickly jot down 2 or 3 sentences, your immediate reaction to the content. What do you think? What would be your response to this person if you were the editor of a paper and this came in as an opinion piece? Today, right now, in this day and time, you don't have to pretend you're in the 1800s. What would your response be to this particular person? Or what is your immediate reaction to it? Yeah, yeah. Just 2 or 3 sentences. And when you're done, just even one sentence, whatever your gut reaction is to this piece. When you're done, put your writing utensil down. I'll know you're done, and we'll go on and discuss this. Everybody's pencils are down. So, somebody share with me, what is your gut reaction? What is, you don't have to read it verbatim necessarily, but what did you write? What was your reaction to this? Volunteer. Shall I take the name cards?
I think that
Thomas?
the person who wrote this really liked it. You know, like they described it well, how it was, how like it's super suspenseful and like.
What are the words they use? It's told in a sensational style, and it's graphically told in a somewhat sensational style, which makes it difficult to put down. Makes us think they like it, right?
Yeah.
Who agrees with that?
I do.
So the person that wrote this probably liked it. Okay. Jump down to that second paragraph.
Wait, it's still the first paragraph, and it ends off with the morbid fascination to the end. How it talks about like it's good all the way.
Till it is finished, holding the reader in morbid fascination to the end. So let's look at that first sentence of the second paragraph. The story can hardly, it would seem, give pleasure to any reader, and to many whose lives have been touched by the nearest ties by this dread disease. It's sensational, it's graphic, you're held in fascination, but I doubt any reader could ever enjoy this.
That's definitely a woman right there. Can't make up her mind.
Who says it sounds contradictory? All right. Yes. Dylan, do you think a male or a female wrote this? You think a female wrote it? Aaliyah, male or female? And so women tend to be detailed, and maybe she can identify more deeply with the narrator because she too is a woman. Perhaps. Maisie, male or female? Female. Zakiya, male or female? Female. Gabby? So it's kind of hard for you to determine. Kylie, what do you think?
I'm just going to be different. I'm going to say it was male.
Okay, it was male. Okay. And Seth?
It was female.
Female. Okay, so what gives you some, so Aaliyah shared that she thought because it's very detailed and almost on an identification level, so maybe another woman was able to identify with the narrator. So perhaps, what else gives you an indication that it might be a female? Remember the time period. First of all, is there a name attached?
MD.
MD.
That could be Matt, that could be Megan, that could be Wall.
Could be Matt, could be Megan, could be Mama.
Could be Mama. I hope not.
So Maisie?
I think the educated writing from back then, and like we had stuff earlier, teachers were women, so guys probably aren't very educated with large words and being able to write a full paragraph.
Watch the head swing system.
Yeah,
Let's
so
published in the magazine. So this was still late 1800s, maybe early 1900s, 1902, 1905. It was a recent publication, so whether or not it was recently published after written or thereafter, it's kind of hard to determine because there's no date on it, but it's certainly from that general time period. I'm thinking the initials are there to remain anonymous because a woman to be outspoken, and it almost seems womanly. Thomas said because women can't make up their minds, and paragraph 1 to 2 changes dramatically. I would almost think that she's afraid to say it's good and that she likes it because it's almost mocking what Dr. Mitchell prescribed as the rescue. She's almost saying that this is absurd, that the story is saying it's absurd that somebody would be treated that way. So, all right, great, good job. What I want to do is move on to our class activity. If you guys remember yesterday, you were given 2 sheets, Why I Wrote the Yellow Paper and the excerpt from Fat and Blood and How to Make Them. What I'm going to have you guys do, here are some questions. There are 4 questions posed up here. And I want you guys to look at these questions and consider them. You're just going to kind of turn your desks around and you're going to work with that person. That will be your shoulder partner for today. I want you to read these excerpts and go through these questions together. You can jot it on the back if you want. The top 2 questions are from Why I Wrote the Yellow Wallpaper, and the bottom 2 are from Fat and Blood. So go ahead and talk to your partner, come up with some answers. I will give you time to jot those down, and then we will have a discussion, group discussion, based on your responses. Okay?
I think we're good like that.
Answer those 4 questions.
Amongst each other?
Yeah, just you have a conversation about it and answer them. They don't necessarily have to be in full sentences, but I love it often that when I ask you the answer, the top 2 are on this one, so you don't start with.
All right.
And then the bottom 2 are on this piece.
Yeah, so this is like, not really. Do we need to like write like a side note to it or?
You can answer the questions there in the margins, or you can write them on the back. They don't have to be full sentences necessarily, just
All right,
enough
I
that we
think
can
that
write the
Gilman
discussion.
describes Mitchell.
Okay.
The experience is rest secure. When you sleep, you want more. When you want more, yeah. I mean, what's transformed from his body perspective, Kai's perspective?
Back together, let's go ahead and go over these questions. The first question, how does Gilman describe Dr. Mitchell and her experience with his rescue? What does she say regarding her experience with this? I would like some textual support too, if you could. I believe I heard Zakiya Dillon talking as I walked by. You seem to be in the right place earlier.
The last sentence on the left-hand column said, I went home and obeyed those directions for some 3 months and came so near the borderline of utter mental ruin that I could be over.
Okay, which means that I was going nuts.
Yeah, she was going insane.
All right, so look at this next question. What characters represent this? So the narrator then is intended to represent who in this story? Macy? Who is the narrator represent in this story?
The writer.
Right. Because she, like she says here, Zakiya pointed out, that she said she went home and she followed these instructions, and for 3 months, picture that, 3 months. We were saying earlier, maybe a couple of hours, a lot of complete rest would be wonderful. A couple of months, 3 months. So the narrator is representative of the author. Who else do you think are significant characters in this story? What role does her husband play? Based on the discussions we had the last couple of days. What role does her husband play? Does he support her? Does he mock her? Does he support the rescuer? Zakiya? He's mocking her. What did you say?
He laughs at her.
He's laughing at her, right. The one text said, he laughed at me. But that's kind of what husbands do to wives. They laugh at them. But is that okay, Kylie?
Not understandable.
Especially when you're 3 months by yourself in a room and that's the only
Support system like that.
right. Okay. Good. All right, good. I'm glad you guys worked together. You did really well. I want to take your attention up here to the board. This will essentially be homework. I have some writing prompts for you all to choose from. Go ahead and get those for you. All right, so what I want you guys to do is read over these options, and you will choose. Tomorrow when you come in, the whole day will be you just having the time to write this essay. This is our final unit objective. Each day we have done a little bit with discussing the story, discussing others' perspectives, discussing women's roles and gender roles. And now I want you to choose one of these 3 prompts. You do need to do in-text citation. You are not limited just to this story. You have Perilous Stuff. You have Why I Wrote the Yellow Wallpaper. You have From Fat and Blood. There are a lot of other criticisms online. You can certainly find your own and use any outside sources that you want. I want to review a few things. Your homework is to plan your ideas for this essay. This is the grading rubric, and again, it is linked to my website, so by all means you can go on and see. You want to use this to plan your writing so you know what you need to do in order to get an A, a B, a C. You know the work that's involved. And it does say citation format, and it does also have structure and organization. So in order to successfully structure and organize, you need, of course, the beginning, middle, and end, but you need this in-text citation. So please use this. Reference this. In-text citation is what? Can somebody, and I know it's up there, but in your own words, briefly tell me, what is in-text citation say?
Pulling text from the reading and citing it.
How? Where?
Where? What do you mean? Where?
Not in my works cited
Where?
page. Dylan?
Right in your paper.
In the actual paper. In-text citation is citation that happens within the text that you are writing. And you do include the author's last name and the page number. And some of these are excerpts. And so the page numbers might be a little bit finicky. So you can still put the author in the title and you can put excerpt from. And that works. The works cited page is a little bit different. What is the works cited page?
That's the page that you get.
That's where you list all the sources. Any book that you referenced, used, looked at, read, and used for information, you make a list of those. Okay? So please use this to your advantage so that you guys have it done correctly. What I suggest tonight, not just plan your essay, but take the time to actually pull out the pieces that you're going to use. And that way you have it all, you just need to put it together into paragraph form. Real quick, up here, we've spent 5 days reading and discussing this story, so I want you to know where all of your grades are coming from. Your formatives will be the annotated text. So tomorrow when you turn in your essay, you'll turn in the story and your primary documents that you annotated so I can see how you are marking the text. Your value of discussion and participation, again, I already collected your evaluation forms, so I have those, I'll grade those. And of course, what I marked off for participation. The final formative is the evaluation of yourself and your peer. Your summative is this, it is your essay. This will be the major test, the major analytical response that you do. Remember in-text citation, conventions, grammar, all of the stuff that makes a good essay. Okay? Any questions?
Not at all.
All right, awesome. Plan tonight, tomorrow when you come in, you'll write your essay. All right, great. Have a good one. Woo! All right. Day 5, summative day, reading the yellow wallpaper. I want you guys to take out all the sources that you have. You can use any of the primary sources, anything you pulled independently, the story itself. Remember that you must have in-text citation, so those sources should be readily available. The prompt you should have chosen last night, and you should have made your plan as well. You will use all that to your advantage. Remember to reference both the story and the criticism that we have read. You can also share about something that one of your classmates said that you found appealing or intriguing, and they can be part of your works cited page. Make sure all the texts are listed, all the texts that you referenced or used, even if they weren't cited directly in your paper, but they were used for information. On your way out, staple it together. The stapler will be on the table. Put it in your assigned class period bin. I'll pull it from there for grading. Make sure the rubric, you pull it from the table and staple it to the front. I will use that for grading. All right, go ahead and get started. Best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions.